Today we're going to do a heads-up comparison of the Asus 144Hz 27-inch monitor and the BenQ X127-inch 120Hz monitor. Now this is not a 3D comparison, this is a gamer's comparison, so we're going to be talking about how they actually perform. We're going to talk about the physical aspects first. Okay. So they both have height adjustment, like so. I mean, and it's really, really easy to do both. You don't have to press a button or anything. Oh, no, that's right. It's swivel. Okay. The Asus swivels on a hinge, front and back, and it actually doesn't really have that much range of motion, whereas the BenQ not only swivels front and back and has more of a range of motion, I'd say of about 20 degrees, but it also has a portrait style setting that allows it to go completely vertical. The portrait style swivel that the BenQ has is about the only one-up that it has on the Asus. Now they both have HDMI and a dual DVI port. The dual DVI port is really what you're going to be needing. Truth be told, however, if you run either of these on HDMI, you aren't getting the full capability of the monitor you need to run dual DVI connection to get the 120 Hz. Now, why something this awesome would have a VGA port, I don't know, but it does. Now, once you turn these things on, first thing you'll notice is that the BenQ is washed out. Notice the color production difference between the two. The Asus wins hands down over here. The other thing is once you get into gear with gaming, you can't help but feel the Asus is way smoother. We tested them on Battlefield 3. Actually testing them right now, as you can see. If you play Battlefield 3, you know what a hit marker is. It lets you know when you fire a bullet if it hit or whiffed, right? Well, with the Asus, it's like you can see every single bullet tracer and every mark almost instantly. Plus, you get the sensation in close encounters that you are a frame or two ahead of everybody else, which is really nice. Well, that's a combination of the refresh rate and the 120 Hz combined with lower input latency. What's input latency, you say? That's how fast the monitor produces what the graphics card tells it to. It's also how fast your input from your keyboard and mouse are produced into on-screen movements. The 144 Hz monitor, even when running at 120 Hz for this heads-up review, just feels faster. All the lines and all the chaos just seem to be smoother. You're not going to actually be able to see the difference because our camera only captures 60 FPS and not the 120 needed to actually show you a real-time reproduction. Sorry about that. I don't think YouTube goes above 30 PS either, now that I think of it. But take our word for it. Truth be told, though the color reproduction alone is so bad in the BenQ, this almost isn't even a contest. But for the hardcore gamer who cares more about frames and input latency, the Asus still wins hands down. If you've never gamed on a high-quality monitor over 60 Hz, then you, sir, are probably the guy getting his ass owned somewhere in the world in a first-person shooter right now. One other thing to note, if you can't produce 120 frames per second or more, you don't get the absolute most from either of these beasts, but you can still benefit from the input latency being lower and just the overall crispness to the gameplay. People who say they didn't notice a difference in the store are just fucking crazy. That or the guy at Best Buy probably used a regular HDMI hookup or a non-dual DVI cord. Once you make the switch, you never go back, period, bitches. So yeah, it took a lot of work to put this heads up together, and I don't think anybody else has compared these two monitors for your viewing pleasure before. You're welcome. Be sure to hit like and subscribe, and just in case. All right, one last thing to note, a comparison about these two monitors. The Asus has, actual push buttons on the bottom, right here, whereas the BenQ has these, they're like, the touchscreen type buttons on the front. And the thing that I find with most touchscreen buttons on monitors is that they end up crapping out at some point in the near future, right after you buy the product. And then after that, it ends up working only about 1 out of 7 times, which is really annoying and inconvenient. Personally, I think the Asus, you know, is better in that regard. So be sure to hit like and subscribe. And just in case you're not picking up what we're putting down, the Asus 144 Hz 27-inch monitor kicked the shit out of the BenQ 27-inch 120 Hz monitor in every facet of the game, son. And did we mention the Asus is slightly cheaper right now? Baller. Thanks for watching another edition of Bomb Geek. Razor,